Well, my whole career is built on doing stuff differently. So I've always kind of been like, well, if my heart feels a certain way and if it's different, it might work out.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was about 6 months ago. I used to think that I had to post every day, had to post on social media every day, would have, practically anxiety if I didn't post for a day, thinking I had to. And then I don't know exactly how it hit me, but I was like, I really only want to go check in on social media once a week. So if I'm going to actually set an example and live by the example that I believe in. And so since then, I've limited myself and I only post once a week.
Live from the ocean, this is Regis Philbin and Kathy Lee. No, but that point too of like, it's the same thing I tell with NBA players. If you are doing great things, there's going to be hate. There's going to be people that will come at you for the whole fact of they are jealous. There's a hole inside them. There's something insecure about them that the only way that they can fill it is by throwing it to somebody else. So when you see these guys, these friends of ours that struggle with, okay, you put in the post, and I'm sure you've had it too. There has to be a time that you have put a post and people are like, that's BS, that doesn't work, that's so bogus, this guy's just trying to sell stuff. But that is that person hurting on the inside, and all you can do is just be like, I feel so bad for this person. And you cannot let it get to you because that is their whole sole intent of why they do that.
Yeah, it's true. And maybe that's the thing, is to put attention on how to cut through and lift some of those people up, because you won't get all of them. But it's kind of heartbreaking when you when you get on social media and you pour your heart out, you do your best, and you get that hateful comment, and it's like,
why?
Yeah.
Like why do you have to do that?
Yeah.
But it is the truth is 19% of people, studies done, will never like you just for a reason that is not under your control. I mean, when you think about it, like, the greatest landslide victory ever in presidential history was Richard Nixon, and he had 61.8% of the votes.
Right, it's a good point, and probably a ton of people on the other side hated him, and it's a good point. It's something that you do have to have thick skin about. You do have to be willing to experience that.
Yeah, and so let's talk on this. One of the coolest things of being around you and spending time with you is seeing how you do things differently. Like, even from a social media perspective, you're like, hey, dude, like, I don't post every day. Like, I don't want to be beholden to my own prison that I've created of this success. And people can fall into that. How do you, how do you just do things differently, Ben? It's super refreshing to see.
Well, my whole career is built on doing stuff differently. So I've always kind of been like, well, if my heart feels a certain way and if it's different, it might work out.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was about 6 months ago. I used to think that I had to post every day, had to post on social media every day, would have, practically anxiety if I didn't post for a day, thinking I had to. And then I don't know exactly how it hit me, but I was like, I really only want to go check in on social media once a week. So if I'm going to actually set an example and live by the example that I believe in. And so since then, I've limited myself and I only post once a week. I make a post on Instagram once a week. That's it, which seems crazy to me for how I used to be. And you know what? Everything has gone along exactly the same.
Probably better too.
It actually, because I keep the stats and everything, it's actually gone slightly better on one post a week than on 7 posts a week.
I looked up some stats on this. Check this out. This is incredible. 31% of adults worldwide have more confidence based on clear skin. 31, that's almost 1/3 of people. Like, hey, you got clear skin, you're more confident. Get this, better looking people, meaning of just the term, the clear skin as we're putting that with, earn 12% more financially over their lifetime. 12% more? That literally could be millions of dollars. You are investing a lot into the lab, into the science, into the research. It is so far a no-brainer why anybody would use anything else other than OneSkin. Like, is there anything like you can even think of that makes sense? Like, I'm trying to, and I can't. I want to say, out of the kindness of your guys' heart, you are providing for our listeners a special pricing code, which will be in the show notes. So look in the show notes to try out OneSkin for yourself.
Strongly recommend to subscribe to our newsletter. We want to empower everyone because we know that the choices that we are making today will definitely impact how you're are gonna age tomorrow.
Isn't that insane? Like when you actually do it, it's so hard to take that step, but it's the whole going against the grain of what society is trying to tell us, that you have to be in the boxes that you have to hit and that you have to check for quote unquote success is usually the complete opposite. And even just sitting here talking with you before we went on this podcast, you're like, yeah, dude, I'm just chilling and it's working out, because you're not stressed that you have to meet this guy, or you have to be on this show, or you have to do this.
Yeah, once you realize that there's no exact recipe of how it has to work. So even for me, if once a week works for me, but you deep down know what the recipe is for you. So for someone else, it might be maybe they post 3 times a week. For someone else, maybe they post 7 times a week. Whatever that recipe is for the person, I feel like they probably can sense that deep down. So once you realize that, then you can just be going with what feels right to you, and it's more fun because you're actually doing. So it's allowed me, for me, the once a week has allowed me to sit back and really look at, dang, what data do I actually want to get across? What feels like the most duty to me this week to educate on, versus just putting out data to put out data to get views. So the shift went from views to, because there's no way to get as much across every metric if you're only posting once a week as 7 times a week. So the focus shifted from trying to drive maximum number of views or sales or whatever to actually just pursuing what feels like a duty.
Totally. I think there's a beauty in that, though, of it's more powerful than, because you'll see the Instagram follows and they'll have something a day, or the YouTube videos have something a day, and you're like, oh, well, they just talked about this a week ago, or they talked about this and it was different, and it starts to almost get too just overwhelmed. And in a world of always on and overwhelmed, there's a beauty in the simple, and there's a beauty in the not doing what everybody else does, running your own race. And you've done that, Ben. Like, think about this. You transcend an entire way of training, and that's not easy. Whenever you're I don't want to say rule breaker, but rule maker, like, how does that work in terms of like the training, and you're like, hey, actually, no, do it this way, but even though the world has been saying that's the incorrect way.
Yeah, well, your knees are over your toes a ton in basketball, and the knees take a beating, and it just so happens that when they're over your toes and when you work them through a full range of motion, you have the potential to build them if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So it just so happened that for me, diving in and trying to master that subject of knees over toes and training the knees through a full range of motion, well, that ended up working for me to the point of being able to play basketball without my knees hurting and help tons of people do the same. My first 2 years out of high school, I got 13 kids college scholarships who had finished high school with no recruitment, who had knee problems but had potential. 13 kids I got scholarships within the first 2 years that I finished college. So I was driven. I didn't want to go on social media, wasn't interested in social media, but I was able to help people. And so it hit a point where it's like, dang, I'm actually like I'm doing people a disservice if I don't put the data out there. So it becomes like a duty. Like, it feels like you have to.
Yeah.
And that's definitely my advice for people, is to whatever feels like that burning duty for the person to help people with, man, just go for it. Like, what have you really got to lose?
That feeling when you are just recharged, you don't have any sickness, no ailments, you have full optimal energy, you are functioning at your highest level. You want to recreate that? Yeah, sure, you do, I do, we all do. And then you can times it by 10. What I'm about to tell you is going to blow your mind. So hold on here. This is real. Hyperbaric chamber. If you don't know what it is, look it up right now. Look up Eleve Health, ELEVE health.com. It's an oxygen miracle. What it is, HBOT, the hyperbaric chamber, it's a simple and non-invasive therapy where you go into this. It places a body in a pressurized environment
that allows extra oxygen to dissolve in the blood plasma and travel freely throughout your circulatory system, getting more red blood cells flowing naturally to the body's function. It's going to help you kill off any harmful bacteria. It's going to help you detox, increase your oxygen concentration, resist and fight infection, heal wounds faster, improve oxygen supply, reduce swelling, stop infection, lower inflammation, all while you're relaxing in the chamber. I kid you not. This is what the pros, the top Olympic athletes, what everybody uses for the highest optimization recovery. This is called hyperbaric chamber, HBOT, from Eleve Health, ELEVE Health.com. Message me separately too if you want to get a specific deal on this. Check it out as you're a sports team, if you're an individual, if you're just somebody who loves optimization. It will be an absolute life changer for you.
Yeah, right. But even in a duty, it's more of a calling. Like, you feel called, and you've been given this gift to be able to teach people, sure, the knees over toes and athleticism, but I think the bigger picture of you and being around you and watching you from a distance is you give people the freedom to be themselves. They're not having to be somebody they're not supposed to be, and they're not trying to be somebody just because everybody else is saying that. And even in the terms of us talking before this, you're like, yeah, dude, I get up with my kids and my wife and we order Air One food, and you're not saying, hey, I'm at the gym at 5:30. I'm doing 67 sets of knees over toes because that's the only way to live. Wear my shoes now. Like, I love that, man. I love that. But so many people need to hear that.
Yeah, my morning routine is we have breakfast together and I strap up the baby and go for a walk every morning. Like, that's so at 9 a.m. I haven't even clocked in yet. I'm walking the baby around.
It's beautiful. And there's been a lot of times where I've texted you and like, hey man, what are you doing? Hey, there's an event here. Like, but you're like, no, I'm with my wife, my kids. And ultimately, I think that is the true determination of success, of when you say something's important to you, you actually live it out. Because I've been around so many people that will pour into everybody else, and then they go home and they have no energy for their supposed to be most important people.
No, it's interesting. I've gotten to be around a lot of successful people, so I've learned good examples and bad examples.
Totally.
And can determine what I want to be like. And so if less time with my kids meant a few more followers, like, is that the right decision or the wrong? So I think you're onto something. I'm still navigating life and trying to figure it out, but I think you're onto something, which maybe I can explain, maybe I can't, but it's almost like the ability to be yourself, like as that maybe sounds overly simplified, but if you're having to get pulled off of what you actually believe in, or what you actually think is right, or what your intentions that you set out to do, if you're getting pulled off of those things, like, maybe that success is actually just being able to stick with what your intentions are, and think for yourself and actually do.
I totally think it is. I mean, it is what you set your intentions to be, but also the way, like, true legacy is how you make other people feel when you leave them. And just being around you, and we both have been around a lot of high-level people, there's a difference in the, when you feel like, oh man, I have to kind of walk on eggshells to make sure I don't say something, or everything has to go perfectly right, or this other person is going to get so upset with me because I'm wasting their time. Like, bro, that has not been you at all. We've been like just walking around, chilling, and like, it's legacy is how you make other people feel, in like how they're able to be comfortable in their skin because you're so comfortable in your skin.
Don't lose the plot. Don't become successful, or if you if your goal is to make $1 billion and you figure out how to make $1 billion, you know how to make money, but that doesn't mean you should now treat people like shit. And if you do, well, maybe you lost the plot. Like, maybe you lost the whole like purpose to begin with. So I do think it helps people to keep that flip of, and this is just the conclusion I came to from going through all this, is like to you could actually pursue, let's say, money as hard as you want, but make sure it's not the number one thing. So like you could still try to be an absolute business master, but make sure that's not the number one thing. Make sure
it's a byproduct.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's a byproduct to use to do better things, to do more things, to do bigger things for other people.
So true.
But so it's even like just doing things differently. And you look at Ben Patrick, and I've asked him many times, I'm like, hey man, like, dude, what are you doing for your nutrition? Like, give me some secrets, give me some tips. Like, I want the secret. Like, and you're like, no man, just balance. Like, there's nothing any specific that I'm doing. I'm not following some carnivore.
I've tried it all for sure. I've tried it all. I've tried it all.
Yeah. But it's different too. And just like, hey, all of it can work.
Yeah.
It's not one specific thing. And I think people need to hear that too, because they're just so beholden on it has to be this way because Ben looks this way, so I have to do exactly what he does. Not necessarily.
Yeah. And I could go absolutely no carbs. As my original mentor would say, your carbs are 3 licks of a dried prune is all the carbs you get. I could go no carbs
3 licks
and
of
get
a dried prune
and get totally shredded out of my mind, and at the end of it be like, well shit, I'm not any happier than I was. So that's why I eat a balanced diet now. It's just thinking for myself of what's actually better for my lifestyle there. Is it better if I intermittent fast, I can get more shredded, but is it better for my kid who does need to eat breakfast when he wakes up? Is it better for him to see me not eat, or is it better for him to see me eat? And so he's eating a healthy, balanced breakfast now, and he sees me eating breakfast. But if I skip breakfast, I can get extra shredded. But is that actually like... So, yes, there's... I haven't been able to put it into clear words, but we've been hanging out for a few hours today, which has been amazing. And it's, getting to see that success, there is no exact recipe of success.
Yeah.
There's no exact definition for everyone of what success is going to look like for them.
Yeah, and I think that's really freeing to know, for people to understand that, man, you run your own race. There's no race that is specifically the same for everybody. And at the core of it, if we can leave you with one thing, and it's just been the foundation and the roots of all we've been talking about today, is we have these gifts specifically to serve other people, to help other people unlock their gifts to use for others. There is a difference. And we've seen it. You're either a giver or you're a taker. And if you are a taker, it's going to drive you nuts. You will never be content. You will never be fulfilled. So to see you, Ben, in your life and what you are doing and all you're talking about, like we ran back different clips because you're like, dude, you got to talk about that. Yeah, it'll help somebody. It'll serve somebody. There's not like, man, let's get this shot. Let's get out of here. Let's get these likes. Come on. I love it.
That's the guiding light. Help people. Wake up tomorrow, try to help people.
Yes.
As you said, whether you wake up 5 a.m., run a marathon, or you wake up at 9 and have breakfast with your kids, wake up and try to help people. That's the definition of success.
Man.
There is whatever that means for you. Wake up and try to help people. It's been a good guiding light for me. I recommend it.
But really help people. Like really actually not help people just so they can go buy all of your stuff. And this dude lives it and breathes it.
It'll come back to you plenty.
Absolutely.
Just wake up, try to help people.
Dude,
I'm going to keep trying to figure it out even better tomorrow. I know you'll do the same.
And you will.
Yeah.
And then I expect when you to figure it out to send it my way and tell me.
Of course.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you.